So we're picking up now on the third audit step. We're going to verify that transactions are from valid merchant codes. So we have a file of the prohibited codes. If I double click, you can have those. And so you're not allowed to charge anything to these types of vendors. So you can't have banking and funeral services and so these are not, you're not allowed to use your purchasing card for these. So I'm going to match up the transactions with those codes to see if there's any match, because matches would be bad. It would mean that there's a transaction that has an invalid code, and I would need to follow up with human resources and see, depending on the severity, whether the person just needs to get reminded or whether it needs to be more serious than that. All right, so what I'm going to do is a join. So I'm going to do, let me open up my transactions here. So analysis tab and then join. And then it wants to, it's automatically going to default to whatever database was open. So it defaulted that the primary database is January through April, which is fine. And the secondary, it says, what do you want to join with? And so we're going to pick the other database, which is the prohibited codes. So select, double click on the other one. Okay. And we want matches only, so just show us any transactions with an invalid code. And the file name will be invalid codes. And hit OK. So I didn't tell it which records to match, which field is a match between the two databases. So I've got to tell it which fields are a match. So the primary, I want the vendor code. And then on the secondary, I want the invalid codes. Now this is going to be a problem because the C means that the vendor code in the primary is a character field. And in the secondary, it doesn't matter that the name of the variable is different, but the format, this is a numeric field. So it won't perform a match with one being a character and one being a numeric. So I've got to cancel out of here. I've got to go back to my database. I can go back to either one, but I have to change either both to character or both to numeric. So I already have this one open. So I'll go ahead and change it. So let's go over here and find the MCC code. And I can right click anywhere in the field. And I'm going to modify the field. And I'm going to modify it to be a field type numeric. And then OK. And yes. So now when I go back up to analysis and join, and I select my secondary database to be prohibited codes, and I'm going to call this prohibited MCC codes. Now when I do a match and I say I would like the MCC codes over here and I would like the invalid codes over here, they both are numeric. They both have the N indicating the field type. And then I can hit OK. And this is now my report. There were 488 transactions with invalid codes. So what do you think of that result? You had about 4,000 transactions. More than 10% of them were to invalid codes. That's a lot. That's a very large set of exceptions. That's pretty serious control breach. That's not one or two. That's over 10% of the transactions. So we're definitely going to want to report that in our audit evidence, and we're going to download this file and include it as evidence in your internal audit report. But another thing we may want to do here is summarize, because I'm just noticing right away that it may all be one person, right? So we can also do a summary. We can go up here to summarization, And we can summarize by any field we like. Why don't we summarize by card holder and see what we get? Okay, so it looks like it is concentrated with 6 people, with Billy being 402 of the 488. Actually, I don't know why we've got him as 2. It looks like it's all but 7 is Billy. So when you are reporting it, that would be an important thing to indicate, because it's not that 10% of the folks with purchasing cards are violating the controls. It is basically, looks like 4 of them are this Michael Ann. So between Billy and Michael Ann, certainly Billy probably needs more than just a reminder. Today might be Billy's last day. So I want to export these files I've created. So I'm going to go up to this home export, and I'm going to export the oldest Excel because it's the most compatible. So that's what I'm going to choose to do. Then here in the breadcrumbs, you would go where your project is, and then you would save it. It will now be in your folder as an Excel file. I've already done it, so I got a message that you've already done it. And then if you also want the summary file, you can do it as well. And you can rename that. I forgot to rename it from the generic summarization to something else. So you can always right click and rename, and since I've already downloaded it into my folder, I can rename it there as well. But let's open the download here and let's have a peek at that. So this is what you should see in your folder as having been exported. So we want to put this in our audit program as part of the attached evidence. So what I'm going to do here is right click here, and I'm going to move or copy. I'm going to create a copy, and I'm going to put it in my audit program file at the end. And now I can get rid of that. And now in my overview, now I have this new sheet, and I'm going to rename it whatever you want to call it, Exhibit A. And as part of your formal evidence, you won't need all of these columns. So you'll make a judgment as to what. So we don't even know what this one is, so I'm going to delete that column. We do want the card holder's name. Card holder's number's probably not that big a deal. Posted versus transaction, we don't need both, so we can just keep the one. Transaction description, given that these are prohibited, we might want the description. I don't think we need the vendor name. That seems to be a dead cell. So we have document amount and source amount. There's no difference. What is the currency? We don't need that. Everything's in US dollars. What was it a purchase? They're all purchased. We probably do want to keep that in the invalid codes. So those are probably the columns that we want to keep. Now, you should have a very professional description, not just the variable name at the top here. So all right, and so these are all different widths, and you may consider making them all similar widths. So card number. Having lots of different widths is widths. Oh, I can't say that word today. Is a little bit distracting. So you may decide or maybe not to not have too many different widths of your columns. You could even just call that date probably and get away with that just fine. All right, well, some of this is a matter of art and you can play with that a little bit. Okay, so 488 invalid codes detected. See Exhibit A for all and Exhibit B for summary. And so then the summary file that you exported, you can then copy it, move a copy of it over here, making it Exhibit B and so forth. So you'll have various number of exhibits behind your audit program, and in your audit program you can refer to them. So every time you insert one of these exhibits, be sure to fix the variable names to be something easily understood in English and have it professionally formatted the way we did it here. Okay, so that is the third audit step. In the next video, we'll be talking about Benford's Law.